are you ding-dong diddly doing there, gamerinos? Hope you're having a philanderific day. Great news during the 4th of July episodes that we did, the copper completely oxidized. So we no longer have to sit and watch copper oxidize. Isn't that exciting? So we get to watch pig dudes die. Very fun, very great. So we're gonna watch a couple of, well, at least one video. Probably a couple of videos. But before we do, I finished the book of 1 Samuel and started the book of 2 Samuel today. And a couple of interesting things I wanted to talk about from there is, well, we're going to start with, this one's technically a later thing, but I want to talk about it first before we get into the other thing. So I noticed there's a bit of what appears to be a discrepancy in how King Saul dies, but I can't say for certain that it is a discrepancy, because 1 Samuel says that he fell on his sword and died. But 2 Samuel, a guy comes forward to King David. Well, I guess he's not king at that time, but comes forward to David and is like, oh, I killed Saul because he begged me to or something. And presented him his crown and something else that belonged to Saul. And I don't know, I just thought that was kind of interesting. But it's not necessarily a discrepancy. Both things can be true. He may have fell on his sword, but didn't, die immediately. And that is when the dude came through and killed him. And that would line up with pretty much everything that we were told happened in that chapter. It would make sense, because he would probably be in a lot of pain at that point, so it didn't really matter if the enemy killed him or not. Since it was a failed suicide attempt, essentially. And the other thing, and maybe this is a hot take, I don't know, but it seems to me that either one of two things was going on with King Saul. He either had schizophrenia or he was possessed by a demon. And the latter makes sense with what's in the book, because it says an evil spirit of the Lord was upon him. But it's weird. He acts the way that you would expect a schizophrenic to act, because David is his his friend, essentially, his really good friend, his son-in-law, and yet he's always trying to kill him. But then there's two different points within the book of 1 Samuel where one time Saul is in a cave or something, and David cuts off a piece of his clothes, I think, and he goes and shows it to him and is like, oh, I could have killed you here, straight up, but I'm not gonna do that because I'm not that guy. It would not be cool of me to kill the Lord's anointed, is what he said. And he's Saul is oh, you're right, you're such a good person, David, and I'm such a bad person, and I've sinned against you, and all of this shit, right? And then he's I'm gonna leave you alone And then, like, a chapter passes, and he's back trying to kill him again. Which a normal person does not do that. Which is why I think schizophrenia would fit in here, you know? It's like, oh, he's conspiring against me, you know, I gotta take him out. And then a second time it happens, he's like asleep in the tent or whatever, and David and a spy go in and steal his spear and water jug, and then they yell down from some mountain like, oh, hey, you know, you're not doing a good job of protecting the king, take a look at what we got. And again, Saul is like, oh, you know, you're a good person, and I'm wrong, and, you know, you are gonna be king one day, and, like, all this great stuff is gonna happen with you, David. But then he goes back to try killing him again. So, like I said, it's got to be schizophrenia, or he's possessed by a demon, and he's getting, like, moments of clarity through said possession. So, just wanted to talk about that. And now we're going to watch a very appropriate video called Minecraft Beautifully Explains Christianity by Redeemed Zoomer.
There's a reason I started my channel by fusing Minecraft and Christianity. It's because I've always believed Minecraft can help us understand Christianity in many ways. It shows why modern science is compatible with belief in God, it helps us understand what heaven will be like and what we will do there, and even helps us understand the problem of why God allows evil. Cool! Does this work for other video games like Fortnite or Angry Birds? No. Minecraft is different because Minecraft is a copy of the real world, and we know that reality exists outside of the world of Minecraft.
Ah, yes, the real world, where you take obsidian and light a portal and go to the nether, and, you know, the zombies and the skeletons are out at night, and the creepers, oh, the creepers.
Minecraft, so that helps us explore the possibility that reality could exist outside of our physical world. So understanding how we relate to a Minecraft world can help us understand how God relates to our world. Let's say there was a villager who had never met a Minecraft player, and that all he knew was the natural world of Minecraft. He might not believe Minecraft had a creator. He might not believe there is a world outside Minecraft. In fact, the scientists of his world might believe that Minecraft generated by a natural process. They might say, we don't believe in a creator. Science has revealed that Minecraft generated by a code. There's no big villager in the sky who went into creative mode and built all this. Now, we know that it's silly for a Minecraft character to think this way, but this is similar to how a lot of modern atheists think about God. Especially ones who think that the more science can explain about our world, the less room there is for God. But Minecraft shows us that even if science is able to explain everything about our world, God can still be behind it. There is no...
Yeah, no, that's really well said here. And that's honestly kind of the soapbox I have been up on for quite a while, you know, because I know some people don't like my take, where I'm like, but science tells us that evolution is like a thing, though. People are like, well, God created us. It's like, yeah, no, you're right, but why can't both be true? Basic logic would tell you have to look at all of the evidence available, and you have to come to the most logical conclusion based on said evidence. And this is no different. This is no different. I mean, science tells us a whole lot of things. Like, oh, what about the Cambrian explosion? Are we just going to pretend that didn't happen? Like, all these weird things were just, like, that we know are there based on fossil records. Are we just going to pretend those didn't exist because it doesn't quite fit into the narrative? No, absolutely not. It just shows us that, you know, probably the early church fathers were right, and that it almost certainly was not a real 7-day period in which the earth was created, and it was more like generations. So.
Contradiction.
I work from home.
Got an ad for Spectrum. I'm going to report it. Spectrum Internet is a scam. It does not work, especially as advertised. I know. I am unfortunate enough to have Spectrum Internet. Cool.
If science is able to explain everything about our world, God can still be behind it. There is no contradiction. For example, it's true that every Minecraft world is generated by a code. Kind of like how there are laws of physics behind the world we see. Minecraft worlds are infinite and will keep generating themselves based on the seed code that you give them. Seriously, anytime you make a new Minecraft world, you can use your own seed code, any combination of letters and numbers that you want, and the algorithm will generate you a world in an exact and predictable manner based on the seed code that you put in. And even though your new world is infinite, anyone in the world who uses the same seed code that you did will have the same exact world generated for them. So even if our world generated by a completely natural process, we can still say God created it exactly as he wanted, because God made the process and God started the process knowing exactly how it would turn out.
Yeah, that's, again, literally everything that I have pretty much ever had to say on the creation of the universe right there.
This is why a lot of modern thinkers think we might live in a simulation, and that's possible, but it shows that belief in God is also reasonable. Now here's how Minecraft can help us understand heaven, or the new heavens and the new earth, which is what the Bible actually talks about. A big question is, how similar will the new heavens and the new earth be to the earth we currently live in? Because the Bible has a lot of passages that imply that the new heavens and the new earth is just going to be a redeemed version of this world. For example, Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed which starts in this world and grows and continues into eternity. And the book of Revelation describes heaven in pretty physical terms. There's going to be cities and kings and nations, so it's not just going to be floating on clouds for all eternity. But there are also a lot of Bible passages that imply discontinuity, that the world's just going to be destroyed and the new heavens and new earth will be something completely new. 2 Peter says the earth is going to be burned up by fire, and Revelation says the new heavens and the new earth are going to replace the first earth that will pass away. So what gives? So when you update a Minecraft world, in a sense, the first world is destroyed, but the new world is the same, but better. The things that are destroyed in the first world are things like bugs and glitches, and everything good from the first world continues. If you update your world, you can have...
That's kind of an interesting way to think about it. I don't know if I entirely agree with that, but it's definitely an interesting concept, and I guess in a way it makes sense.
The same structures and all the cool stuff from the old world, but with a lot of the problems fixed and a lot of new possibilities added. This applies to our world because a lot of the problems of our world are baked into the laws of physics and biology, which make death, decay, and destruction inevitable. So when our world gets an update, the laws of physics need to be changed, and the laws of biology also need to be changed so that the lion can lay down with the lamb, as scripture says. So the new creation is going to include things like trees, lemonade, Bach, birds, and Ohio, but is not going to...
Blah, Ohio! Yeah, Ohio's alright. It's gonna be interesting seeing Ohio without, like, meth. Huh.
Include things like death, pain, loss, and decay. Finally, Minecraft explains the problem of why God allows evil better than any philosopher I've ever read. So, a world where God never allowed any problems would be better than a world like ours where God does allow problems. Or so we think. When we create a Minecraft world, we actually have this choice between creative and survival. In creative, you don't have to worry about the problems of survival mode, like your house getting blown up, or losing your stuff, or getting swarmed by mobs, or just not having enough resources to build what you want. So why does anyone choose survival mode? Yes, it is fun beating the Ender Dragon and facing other challenges.
That this is true. It's so much like more accomplishing to go through and like survive and build things, you know, without creative
challenges, but there's more to it than that. Building in creative mode is just less meaningful. If you start with creative, the only difference between a block of gold and a block of gravel is aesthetics. They're equally easy to obtain. In survival,
The comment says false. The gravel block can fall, but the gold stays. That's funny.
the things you build don't just look nice, they actually have functions like farms and stuff. And the function wouldn't exist if there wasn't the threat of dying without food. Challenges like having to get from one place to another actually inspire more creativity with railways and stuff. Valuable things like gold and emeralds are actually meaningful because they are hard to obtain. Industrial progress in Minecraft is often motivated by fear of danger, kind of like in the real world. That first night hiding from mobs in your dirt house is terrifying, but it inspires you to get more resources and take on the world. Basically, everything cool in Minecraft would not exist if it weren't for some problem that had to be overcome. This applies to the real world.
That is true. I mean, literally, we're standing at a farm that we got because we needed gold to be able to trade with piglins to be able to get stuff. And, well, XP too. So, I mean, yeah, he's literally proving the point. I mean, we can take a look around us. That was built because we... That's my face. That's really my face. Whoa. That melon and pumpkin farm was built because we needed, like, melons and pumpkins to trade with villagers. Needed bamboo. Needed cactus. Well, I mean, because we don't need cactus, but, you know. We need sugarcane. It's nice to have lava. You can see that over in the to the right of the screen there. But yeah, I mean, we definitely wouldn't have built all of these things if we were in creative mode and there was no need to obtain all of these things.
World 2. Every technology that we enjoy arose in response to something bad. We developed computers to win World War II. We developed space travel to win the Cold War. We developed houses so we wouldn't die in the freezing cold. And we developed plumbing because people were dying of thirst. This doesn't just apply to human technology, but also biological features that arose out of evolution. For example,
it also gives us a chance, because, I mean, a lot of those things that he mentioned are very humanitarian in nature, if you think about it, you know, like plumbing and like medicine and stuff like that. It was invented or discovered to help people, which gives us a chance to show the love of Christ to our fellow man.
The reason this looks tasty to you is because somewhere along the way, your ancestors died for not being motivated enough to eat food. The reason we enjoy romance is because we need motivation to keep the species going so it doesn't die out. The reason we enjoy fine literature is because we like seeing problems get overcome somehow. God knows that the existence of evil leads to creativity that would not have arose without it, and Minecraft is a very good way of illustrating this. It shows that in some way, evil can be a garden for more complex and intricate levels of good. Of course, the Christian knows that all evil will be destroyed someday, and all that will remain is the goodness that was brought out of it. In fact, evil being transformed and overcome with good is literally the whole message of the cross, with Jesus defeating death by his death and resurrection. Minecraft also shows us that creativity is good in and of itself, so if temporary evil leads to more creativity, then it's not really evil in the long term. Because we are created in the image of God, the Creator, having a world where we can create stuff helps us understand why God does what he does. Thank you for watching this video. If you want access to some exclusive content or just to support my...
Yeah, okay. So like I said, that's Minecraft beautifully explains Christianity by Redeemed Zoomer. What a name. I mean, what a video. Definitely an interesting one to say the very least. Do we have one more short one? Was the Apostle Paul a fraud by Testify?
Are you ready for it?
Studying the conversion of the Apostle Paul turned an educated and skeptical English statesman into a Christian apologist. In 1747, George Littleton penned Observations on the Conversion and Apostleship of St. Paul. Littleton wrote, "I thought the conversion and apostleship of Paul alone, duly considered, was of itself a demonstration sufficient to prove Christianity to be a divine revelation." In this very short and influential work of 18th century Christian apologetics, Littleton examines the life of Paul found in Acts and in his letters, and offers the following quadrilemma. Number one, either Paul was an impostor who said what he knew to be false with an intent to deceive, or number two, he was an enthusiast who had posed on himself by the force of an overheated imagination, or number three, he was deceived by the fraud of others, or number four, what he declared to be the cause of his conversion did all really happen, and therefore the Christian religion is a divine revelation. The statements made by Paul in his letters, which he addressed to different churches and individuals, cannot, quote, be doubted without overturning all rules by which the authority and genuineness of any writings can be proved or confirmed, end quote, according to Littleton. Let's take a look at option one. Was Paul deliberately spreading something that he knew to be false? This definitely isn't a very popular theory today.
Yeah, that's kind of a dumb theory, because, I mean, it wasn't a good... Well... It wasn't a beneficial... That's the word. It wasn't beneficial to be Christian back when Christianity was first spreading. They were heavily persecuted. Hell, Paul was persecuting. If he had stayed as like a Pharisee, he would have probably received a lot of praise from the majority of people. So to sit here and say that he went and was just lying about it, for you'd have to point to a reason as to why he would do that. Because again, it's not like Christianity was super popular or anything. He wasn't making any money off of it. He might have been famous to like a few people that were already like in Christianity, but it's not like he was going to be like, I don't know, Joel Osteen or whatever, where he just made like a shit ton of money and is like super famous and everything like that. No, it didn't work that way.
But Littleton doesn't duck this possibility, and in some corners of the internet, you still see this from time to time. The context of the claims makes it very improbable that Paul was lying. For starters, Paul knew that Jesus was crucified, and with approval of the high priest, Paul was breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. Changing teams would be a suicide mission. What possible earthly motivation could he have? Paul certainly was not preaching for wealth. Unlike many modern televangelists today, being an apostle was not the way to fame and fortune. In his letter to the Corinthians, he wrote, "To this very hour we go hungry and thirsty, we are in rags, we are brutally treated, we are homeless." Paul worked with his own hands to support his missionary journeys. He wrote to the Thessalonians, "Surely you remember, brothers, our toil and hardship. We worked night and day in order not to be a burden to anyone while we preached the gospel of God to you." So, did Paul become a Christian to gain a reputation? That doesn't seem very likely. Paul was a star pupil of Gamaliel, a member of the Sanhedrin. He embraced a religion that was universally despised by both Jew and Gentile. In his letter to the Corinthians, he acknowledged that the apostles were seen as the scum of the earth. If Paul was looking to gain a reputation, he could have just remained a zealous Pharisee. But perhaps Paul wanted to exercise power over people. That also seems very unlikely. Paul called himself the least of all apostles. When the Corinthians were arguing over which apostle was the most important, Paul rebuked them for their carnality. Paul obviously sought no earthly power. He admonished believers to live in submission to the government and to pay their taxes. So what about serving his own selfish lusts? Well, it's hard to accuse Paul of serving his passions. He lived a celibate life. He appealed to his own conduct as an example of what a holy life looks like. Religious cult founders like Joseph Smith and Muhammad sought earthly power and married multiple wives. Paul was the exact opposite of such leaders. What about the idea that Paul conspired with some of the disciples? Well, contrary to some common skeptical tropes, Paul didn't invent Christianity, rather he inherited it. He had no connection to any Christians outside of persecuting them. If Paul preached something that they didn't, it would ruin his credit. To fake a conversion to Christianity, he'd first have to find out what Christianity taught. It's difficult to incline.
Yeah, that is true. It's not like he was the only dude running around at the time trying to act like he was the leader of the church. Like, you literally got John and Peter and Andrew and, yeah, literally 11 of the 12 disciples. You know, Judas didn't make it. He didn't make it.
Someone to share their secrets of deception with you by arresting them and killing them. Remember also that at one time Paul rebuked Peter. Accomplices in fraud generally don't go around publicly castigating fellow leaders. Also, if Paul was acting on his own, he was fighting quite the uphill battle. He was preaching to the Gentiles that a crucified Jew was the Lord and judge of all mankind. He was not asking them to add one more deity to their pantheon, and preaching that a criminal who hung on a cross was hardly appealing to most Jews living in the diaspora. Littleton aptly asked if St. Paul had nothing to trust but his own natural faculties, his own understanding, knowledge, and eloquence, could he have hoped to be singly a match for all theirs united against him? Could a teacher unheard of before, from an obscure and unlearned part of the world, have withstood the authority of Plato, Aristotle, Epicurus, and Zeno? If you think about it, it's difficult to imagine a fraud overcoming these odds without the aid of miracles, which Paul claimed to have performed. If Paul was a fraud, he must have been quite the magician. But what did he gain from this fraud? Paul lets us know. 5 times I received 40 lashes minus 1 from the Jews. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I received a stoning. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and day in the open sea. On frequent journeys, I faced dangers from rivers, dangers from robbers, dangers from my own people, dangers from Gentiles, dangers in the city, dangers in the wilderness, dangers at sea, and dangers among false brothers, toil and hardship, many sleepless nights, hunger and thirst, often without food, cold, and without clothing. It is pretty much next to impossible to argue that Paul was a fraud. That's going to do it for this particular video. We've looked at the fraud option. In the next video, we're going to consider the 2 options of whether or not Paul was mistaken and see if those carry more weight. Thank you for watching.
All right, yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Testify there. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to the YouTube crowd who's going to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.